Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. You guys doing okay? Yeah? This won't be as long, I promise. Okay, so I have two things in front of me. I really super crazy love this last talk about stories, and my head's still spinning from it. So I was supposed to talk to you about leadership and qualities of leadership, which is kind of a change of subject, but I'm kind of feeling like I should just tell you a story. From the Quran. What do you say? Story? Alright, so I'm going to, sorry YM, I will switch the topic on you guys again. Okay. Because we just discussed it in theory, we took a couple of points from Surah Yusuf, so might as well stay on the theme, and this is one of my favorite things to do is tell a story anyway. So, Bismillah wa salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. The individual that fascinates my imagination in the Quran is Musa alayhi salam. His narrative, his story is mentioned in several places in the Quran, and every time it's just absolutely mind-boggling. And this particular case that I want to share with you belongs to Surah Taha. Surah Taha. Those of you who've attended some of my seminars before, I've discussed it in some detail and in some animated form, the dialogue between Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun from Surah Al-Shu'ara, Surah number 26. But this conversation is from Surah number 20. Surah number 20. Okay? Surah Taha. Musa alayhi salam is on a journey. He's traveling with his family. And Allah tells us, وَهَلْ أَتَاكَ حَدِيثُ مُوسَى. Did the news of Musa come to you? It's a really cool way of starting the story. وَهَلْ أَتَاكَ حَدِيث. Hadith in Arabic is something new. And by this time, the story of Musa has been mentioned somewhat before. But now Allah is going to tell one part of the story that He's never told before. So He says, did this part of Musa's story, did it get to you yet? Did you hear about this? And already the curiosity is piqued. And then He tells us, He starts this conversation, He goes, إِذْ رَأَى نَارًا. Actually, before this even, إِذْ رَأَى نَارًا فَقَالَ لِأَهْلِهِمْ كُثُوا. He saw a fire and he said to his family, you stay here. You guys stay here. He's traveling with his family, it's in the middle of the night, and the GPS batteries went out, and it's dark, it's out in the desert, probably something like Texas, right? And there's no lights anywhere, and he sees a fire. He sees a fire up on top of a mountain. Now the thing is, if it's completely dark and there's a fire on top of a mountain, who should see it? Everybody should see it, right? But the language of the ayah is umkuthu, you stay here, inni anastu nara. The grammar of the ayah suggests nobody else could see it. It is I for sure that sees it. And inna is used in Arabic to convince someone of something. It's used when you're not sure, you say for sure. When your listener is not sure. So it's almost as though Allah is telling us a conversation that happened between him and his family without going into those details. Like he says to his family, you see that? He says, what? I don't see anything. The wife says, what are you talking about? I don't see anything. He goes, no, for sure, I see a fire there. You know why? Because Allah made that fire such that only who could see it? Only Musa alayhi salam. Because in the middle of the desert, if there's a fire at night and people are lost, they're all going to show up. But nobody else is supposed to show up. This appointment, this meeting is only with Musa alayhi salam, so only he sees it. So he says, no, for sure. I'm telling you, I see a fire. I've witnessed of inni anastu naran. And then he says to his family, لَعَلِّي آتِيكُم مِّنْهَا بِقَبَسٍ أَوْ أَجِدُ عَلَى النَّارِ هُدًى. Maybe I'll bring to you some flame from it. Maybe I'll bring to you a little bit of, some sparks from it. We can get something out of some heat from that flame, because it's getting dark, it's late, and the desert environment, it gets really cold. So he's in a sense of urgency. Of course, when you're getting something for your family, the fathers here can relate. If you're getting something for your family and your family is left by themselves, even if they're in the hotel room or at the airport or somewhere else, and you have to go get food, you're in a hurry, you gotta get back. You gotta rush. He's climbing up this mountain, but what's he worried about at this time? His family. That's what he's worried about, because they're by themselves in the middle of the dark. So he's hurrying his way up, and he says, وَأَوْ أَجِدُ عَلَى النَّارِ هُدًى. When I get upon the flame, I might find some guidance there. I might find some direction. I might find some way to get out of this dark mess where we can't, find our way. Now when he's thinking of guidance, what kind of guidance is he thinking of? Directions. But what kind of guidance does he find? A different kind, right? Guidance for life. Guidance that he could never have had from anywhere else. So there's a wordplay here from Allah. Like Allah is telling us, look what he thought he's going to get, look what he got. أَوْ أَجِدُ عَلَى النَّارِ هُدًى. Now he's climbing up this mountain by himself, middle of the night. There's a flame up there. He's never been to this place before. فَلَمَّا أَتَاهَا. Then when he got to it, lamma, by the way, is used in Arabic to prolong something. In other words, it took a while to get up there. It was quite a struggle. So now he's exhausted. He's up, approaching the top of the cliff. Nudiya, a call was made. Ya Musa. Musa. You're up on top of a cliff, by yourself, in the middle of the night, and nobody even says, hey, who's there? Who are you? Nothing. He's called by his name. It's already shocking that he heard a voice. That's terrifying enough. But they know the voice knows who he is. Ya Musa. And immediately at this point you're in shock, right? Because if somebody knows your name, you're already like, yeah? He's in shock. What does Allah tell him immediately? Inni ana rabbuk, fakhla'an alayk. No doubt about it, I'm your master. Take your shoes off. Fakhla'an alayk. Now, he hasn't seen anything. He's only what at this point? He's heard a powerful voice. And the powerful voice has given him a command to do what? Take off his shoes. Take off his shoes. By the way, this is an interesting phenomenon. When Allah spoke, when Allah delivered the message to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, He introduced himself as the master too. And He also commanded at that time. What was the command to the Prophet? Read. Musa is told, I'm your master. What should you do? Take your shoes off. But there's a flip. In the case of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the command came first, and then master was mentioned. Here, I'm your master, and therefore, فَخْلَعْنَا. Then, as a result, take your shoes off. إِنَّكَ بِوَادِ الْمُقَدَّسِ طُوَى. You're in the sacred valley of Tuwa. Sorry, I didn't know. And he takes his shoes off. Right? Now Allah is beginning to, at this point, when you're confused, you're like, there must be some confusion. I must be at the wrong place. This isn't happening. Allah makes sure He understands you're in the right place. وَأَنَا اخْتَرْتُكَ. It is I that has selected you. وَأَنَا اخْتَرْتُكَ. I have selected you. There's a very interesting ayah. That's part of the ayah too. In Arabic, if you say اخترتك, it just means I've selected you. But Allah says وَأَنَا اخْتَرْتُكَ. So the I is mentioned twice. And the purpose of mentioning a pronoun twice in Arabic is to create exclusivity. It is I who has chosen you, meaning this meeting was set up not by you but by me. You didn't come here because you wanted to get something. I brought you here. This is completely by plan. And this, if you put it in perspective, what this means, then eventually I'll go into the word khair. Ikhtiyar comes from khair. Musa alayhi salam is a baby at some point in his life, and he's put inside a basket. By the way, if anybody's seen Kung Fu Panda 2, they steal from Musa alayhi salam's story. They do. Literally a basket ends up, and then there's that peacock villain, right? It has a premonition that a panda is going to kill it. So it kills all the pandas. And then Kung Fu Panda comes in the end and kills him. And I was like, come on, just give some credit, man. This is not creative story. This is Musa alayhi salam's story, told in the form of, DreamWorks. But anyhow, away from that tangent, Musa alayhi salam is a baby, water's in the basket, but even that basket has a tracking on it. It has a recipient, a specific recipient it's supposed to end up in the hands of. And then it's supposed to be raised the way it's supposed to be raised, at the hands of the one who's going to be destroyed by this baby will raise him. That's part of the plan. And then he'll punch someone, and what's going to happen to the guy? He's going to die. And then you're going to flee. That's part of the plan too. And you have a scheduled 8 year of, work visa. right? You have work to do in another part, and stay in exile, and then you're going to be traveling, and you will end up being in the middle of the dark in the desert. That's on schedule too. You've arrived just on time. This appointment by the minute, by the second was scheduled. وَأَنَا اخْتَرْتُكَ. Then there's the word ikhtiyar. In Arabic there are 3 different words for choosing something. And Allah chose specifically ikhtara, yakhtaru, ikhtiyar. This word in Arabic, as opposed to ijtiba and istifa, this word in particular means to choose something for the good in them. Because it comes from the Arabic word khayr. You know what khayr is, right? Khayr and shar, good and evil. Khayr. Why mention this word particularly? Ulama comment that Musa alayhi salam had a riding guilt. He had killed an individual. That guilt was not letting him go. He felt like he was no good. And Allah told him, I have chosen you because I see the good in you. Meaning Allah sees the good in him that he might not even be able to see in himself. And He's chosen him. فَاسْتَمِعْ لِمَا يُوحَى. Then listen carefully to what's being revealed. Now Allah tells him, I've chosen you specifically, you better listen carefully to what's being revealed. إِنَّنِي أَنَا اللَّهِ. It is no doubt I am Allah. لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا. No one is to be worshipped and obeyed except myself. فَاعْبُدْنِي. Then enslave yourself to me. فَاعْبُدْنِي. Enslave yourself to me. The first command was take your shoes off. That's just the beginning of obedience. But now you know who obeys in every circumstance? A slave. You tell someone to do something once, you've obeyed them. Maybe you're a servant. You've served them. You've obeyed them. But to obey them in every circumstance, you have to be a slave. There's a transition here from one command being obeyed to just becoming turning into a life of obedience. فَاعْبُدْنِي. And before I tell you what's coming next, there's a little bit of background. It's really important. All of you in your life have had the opportunity to meet somebody famous at one point or another, relatively famous. Maybe you got to meet the principal of your school and they shook hands with you or something, or you invited some scholar to your house and you had a chance to talk to them, or you had lunch with somebody famous, etc., etc. You met a celebrity or something. You're on the plane, you're sitting next to like a player from the NBA or something like that. When people meet a celebrity, what do they usually do? Besides drooling, what else do they do? That's what they do. And then they take a picture with them, and then and then when they're done taking a picture, they tweet about it and they Facebook about it, and then they're like, you know who I got to meet? Oh my God! I was at Ikna, and Sheikh Yasir Qadi was praying next to me. And he even said, Wa alaikum salam. I'm never washing this hand again. And so, people go a little crazy when they meet somebody famous. They go a little, but it becomes a memory they never forget. If you even go to older people's homes that if had the opportunity to meet someone famous, they usually take that picture and frame it on the wall. Like they shook hands with the president or the CEO or whatever else. And if you're working in a company, a large company especially, and the CEO walks in and stops over at your cubicle and puts his hand on your shoulder and says, good job. Just those words, you'll never forget. Because you just had the opportunity to meet someone super duper famous. You can't get that memory out of your head. It's one of the milestone great moments of your life. Who is Musa alayhi salam getting to meet? Who is he just getting a chance to talk to? Allah. You think he's ever going to forget? This is a conversation that's of epic proportions in human history. A conversation is happening between Allah and a human being. And the conversation was initiated by Allah directly. By His name He called him. Musa, I've chosen you, listen up. It's incredible. And Allah tells him, no one should be worshipped except myself, enslave yourself to me. And then He tells him, وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ لِذِكْرِ. This part of it just boggles my mind. Establish the prayer so you can remember me. The question I have is, he's never going to forget. How can he forget? He's in conversation with Allah. If there's one thing Musa alayhi salam will never ever forget, is this. And Allah says, even you, if you really want to remember me, what do you have to do? Establish salat. Can you imagine the value of salat when it comes to remembering Allah? It's amazing how Allah puts that in perspective. And then after remembering Allah would be the primary purpose of establishing prayer. Here's the secondary purpose. It comes right after. Inna sa'ata atiyatun. The hour is coming. Day of judgment is coming. It's on its way. And the word atiyatun ism fa'il in Arabic means it's running, it's coming right now. It's on its way. Things are in motion already. Akadu ukhfiha litujza kullu nafsin bima tas'a. I'm almost keeping it hidden. Allah says, akadu ukhfiha. I'm almost keeping it hidden. By saying almost, what has He told us? There are some signs I will release. There are some things I will let you see. I won't show you everything, but I'll give you some indications. And our Prophet gave us some of those indications. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. لِتُجْزَى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ بِمَا تَسْعَى. So every person can, it's beautiful language. So every person can be compensated for what they ran towards. تَسْعَى. It's usually translated as what efforts they made. But sa'i in Arabic is literally running towards something. Like we do sa'i in Hajj and Umrah. Right, we make the sa'i. What's really beautiful is Musa alayhi salam got here by means of sa'i. He ran to this place, didn't he? He ran and he was running sincerely, and Allah says, so Allah gives everybody what they ran towards. And you ran towards this. SubhanAllah. Now this conversation is very serious. It began with Musa, and by the way, here's another difference, very, very important. Hopefully you'll get to appreciate this, especially as a parent. You tell my child, if I'm playing with my kids or something, or I'm in the musalla with them. Yesterday I had a very interesting salat experience with two of my boys. Right, because you're gotta hold them in place and you gotta make salat. With girls, they sit in one place, man. They just stay in one place. With boys, I don't know why. What is it? And I don't want to be the guy that make the announcement of, there's a little boy here. He's wearing a dirty shirt. I don't want to be that dad, so I'm keeping them in check. But when you're telling your kids not to do something, you say their name first. Mehmet. Walid, Abdullah, Fatima. You don't even have to say stop it. Don't do that. You just do what? You call their name. Calling somebody's name is a form of harshness. In the beginning of your talk, if you want to say something to someone and you say their name first, it's a form of strictness. But saying somebody's name at the end, so how was your day, Musa? How was your day, Walid? When you say the name at the end, what happens? It's a form of what? Love, softness, mercy. You notice the difference? When the conversation began between Allah and Musa alayhi salam, what was the name? Beginning or end? Musa, take your shoes off. Harsh, there's a toughness here. Now listen. وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا Musa. What's in your right hand, Musa? Where's the word Musa? At the end. What's in your hand, Musa? What has Allah just done? He got soft. He got nice. He's calming him down. He realizes Musa alayhi salam is at this point really terrified. Allah just gave him a lecture. Allah just gave him a lecture about first take your shoes off. I'm your master. You better become my slave. Establish prayer. Judgment day is coming. I'm keeping it hidden, and I'll give everybody a compensation of what they... if you just heard that in the course, it's not a long conversation. This 1 minute is probably the most shocking 1 minute of his life. He needs to be calmed down now, so what does Allah say? So, what's in your hand? What's in your right hand, Musa? وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا Musa. What's that? Now, does Allah know what that is? By the way, what's in his hand? Okay. So this part of the conversation, Allah has calmed Musa alayhi salam down. Is that clear? He's calmed him down. Musa alayhi salam realizes he's about to talk to Allah. Not many people can say that. Not many people can say, I got to talk to Allah. So when you get to talk to somebody important, would you like the conversation to last longer or short? You'd like it to stay longer. You wouldn't want the connection to be lost. You want to prolong the conversation. So what does he say? He says, هَذِهِ عَصَايَ. This is my staff. By the way, staff in English is not the people you hire. It's the old English, right? Staff is a big stick that you carry. And we don't use the word cane because canes are signs of weakness. But staffs are symbols of strength. It takes a strong person to hold a staff. And when somebody holds a cane, it's a symbol that they are now weak. They lean on that and they need that to recline. And that's the primary purpose of a cane. But this is a staff. It's a large stick. هَذِهِ عَصَايَ. What was the question? What was the question, guys? What's in your right hand? What's the answer? This is my step. Question is done, answer is done. Musa alayhi salam doesn't stop. He says, هذه عصايا أتوكأ عليها. I lean on it sometimes. Did Allah ask, what do you do with it? Allah didn't ask. Allah Azza wa Jal did not, all Allah asked was one thing, which was what? What is it? And he said, this is my staff, I lean on it. وَأَهُشُّ بِهَا عَلَى غَنَمِي. And I beat on bushes with it so that my sheep can eat. But you know it's a stick. How many things are you going to come up with? Right? So he runs out of things to say. But he wants the conversation to go on, alayhi salam, because he's getting to talk to Allah. So he, exhausting his imagination, says, وَلِيَ فِيهَا مَآرِبُ أُخْرَى. And I've got some other things I can do with it too. It's amazing. It's amazing that he says that. Because what's he trying to do? Keep it going. And it shows you his nervousness, alayhi salam. And Allah says, قَالَ, very softly Allah Azza wa Jal says, قَالَ أَلْقِهَا يَا Musa. Throw it, Musa. Now what's the harsh way of saying it? Ya Musa, ألقِهَا. But Allah says, ألقِهَا ya Musa. Throw it, Musa. Just throw it. He throws it. فَأَلْقَاهَا. Now here we don't say فَلَمَّا أَلْقَاهَا. We say just فَأَلْقَاهَا. You know, when he climbed the mountain, we read the word فَلَمَّا أَتَاهَا. It took him time to get to the mountain. It took an effort. But when Allah commanded him to throw, did it take him any time? No, he just immediately, yes sir, yes, Allah, threw it. He throws the staff immediately. فَإِذَا هِيَ حَيَّةٌ تَسْعَى. Then immediately it turns into a python moving around. And by the way, it didn't just turn into a snake, tas'a, it's running around. Now imagine, you were just calm, you were nervous, and Allah very softly told you, throw the stick, Musa. And the moment he throws it, what happens? It's a gigantic python, and what is it doing? Running around. You're calm anymore? No. All that calm is gone. All that calm is gone. He's at this point, he must have been terrified. He really, I mean, it's a human reaction to be terrified. Snakes already have a very terrifying appearance. Even the appearance of a snake is horrific, right? And then on top of that, the thing is running around and it's massive. And it just came out of nowhere, and that was his staff. Now at this point, what does Allah tell him? Look at the words. قَالَ خُذْهَا. Grab it. Grab it? وَلَا تَخَافْ. And don't be afraid. Grab it, don't be afraid. You know what I was going to say? If I was in that situation and was telling my kid to grab something, don't be afraid, grab it. That's what I would say. Don't be afraid, grab it. What did Allah say? Grab it, don't be afraid. Amazing. It's amazing. Because Allah is expecting obedience first. Obedience first. And then courage. Of obedience is in what part of the ayah? Grab it. خُذْهَا. Where's courage in the ayah? لَا تَخَافْ. Don't be afraid. And then there's the third part of the ayah. سَنُعِيدُهَا سِيرَةَ الْأُخْرَى. You know, سِيرَةَ الْأُولَى. We will return it back to its original state. 3 parts in one ayah. 3 parts of this commandment. And this is where I'll end this story, even though the story is much longer and it's so beautiful. It's amazing. You got to read it on your own though. Enjoy the story. It's how Allah tells a narrative is incredible. Every little detail just takes you into a world. You know when Sheikh Yasser was describing qassa yaqussu, to follow behind, it literally, Allah takes you to the scene. He just literally takes you there. You and I are at the mountain at this point. You know, when we're listening to this story. Now the thing is, just in this grabbing the staff, grabbing the snake, not being afraid, and then Allah says we will return it to its original state, meaning what? It'll become a staff again. So now imagine a snake is running around and you're being told the moment you grab it, it'll be a stick, don't worry. The moment you grab it, and you need to do that immediately, there shouldn't be any time lapse between Allah's command and you obeying. Because when Allah says, we obey, there's no gap in between. So grab it immediately and know, and first of all, you need to be courageous after that when you grab it. And know for sure, the moment you do, it's not going to turn back and bite you. What's it going to turn into? A stick. Is that an easy thing or no? Does that take an amazing amount of trust of Allah? 3 things. Obey, grab it is obey. The second thing was courage. And the third thing is what? Trust. Trust me, it'll be a stick. Just trust me. 3 things. The 3 things Musa alayhi salam will need when he goes to talk to Fir'aun. He will need to obey Allah. He'll need to obey Allah. And he'll need to go back into Egypt. And when he goes into Egypt out of obedience to Allah, the closer he gets, the more what? The scarier things will become. The scarier, because the authorities are looking for him. It's not easy to go back to Egypt. And then when he gets finally there, he's convinced he's going to get killed. In Surah Al-Shu'ara we learned. In Surah Al-Shu'ara he says, you know, إِنِّي أَخَافُ أَنْ يَقْتُلُونَ. I'm afraid they're going to kill me. It's a very legitimate fear that Musa alayhi salam has. And Allah says, no, trust me. Don't worry about it. Taken care of. Those 3 lessons of obeying Allah, being courageous, and trusting Allah, the entire tarbiyah program of that on the top of that mountain is what? One thing. Grab the snake. Just that. خُذْهَا وَلَا تَقَفْ سَنُعِيدُهَا سِيرَةَ الْأُولَى. Amazing, isn't it? That Allah does that. He teaches such amazing lessons in one statement. And now this messenger is ready. If he can pull that off, he can pull anything off. I mean, that at this point, Allah will take care of it. Allah will take care of my problem. You know? This is how stories are told in the Quran. This is the narrative of the Quran. It takes you there. It grabs you and it doesn't let you go. And if you guys, inshallah, at another point, hopefully maybe I'll do the entire conversation. The entire conversation between, and this is a good chunk of the surah, it's a very long discussion between Allah Azza wa Jalla and Musa alayhi salam. Allah even lets him know, you know, by the way, this is not the first time I'm actively involved in your life. You know, when your mother put you in the water, and your sister was walking next to you, Allah is telling him about times of his life he doesn't even remember. You know how you take your child sometimes and you tell them, you know, when you were a little baby, you were so annoying. Nothing has changed. Parents do that. They go reminisce about old times. You don't remember, but I can't forget. Allah is reminding Musa alayhi salam of times even Musa can't remember about his own life in this narrative. Like, you know, when you meet someone for the first time, you would think they don't know me. Because they're, you know, why would they, this important figure, why would they know something about me? I just met some brother here, a good friend, an old friend from Jersey, and his name is Norman too. And I said, hey Norman, how you doing? He goes, I can't believe you remember my name. I was like, what are you talking about, man? That's messed up. But you know, there's an assumption if somebody's a little more known than you are, that they won't remember who you are. You're insignificant before them. What is Allah Azza wa Jal compared to a creation? And Allah honors Musa alayhi salam by saying, I'll even tell you the details of your childhood. And Allah doesn't have to prove that to him. Allah knows everything. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. He does. But He still makes sure He tells him, your sister was walking along, and then you punched the guy, and then you left. You know, and then you were brought here. Subhanallah. What an amazing conversation between master and slave that happens in this narrative. There's only one thing I'd like to add to the concept of stories in the Quran. That Sheikh Yasir, he said, he made 4 very significant points, and he said there are many, many more. So I'd only like to add one more. Just one more, inshallah. And that is that the stories in the Quran are repeated. Right? And they're not, except for the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, they're not all told in one place. Meaning Yusuf alayhi salam's story is all bunched together in which surah? Obviously, Surah Yusuf. But that's not the case with the story of Musa alayhi salam. That's not the case. We have a piece of it here, a piece of it there, a piece of it there, a piece of it there. The story of Bani Israel is not in one place. The story of Ibrahim alayhi salam is in one place. The story of Adam alayhi salam is not in one place. They're scattered. They're scattered and repeated. So there's 2 issues here. From a literature point of view, they're scattered and they are repeated, or some parts of them at least are repeated. So the question arises to the Western critic, And to someone who's reading the Quran in translation, what's the point of this repetition? What's the point of repeating the story? What's the point of not just putting all of it together in one, make a surah called Surah Musa and put everything there? Done. Doesn't happen like that. It's not 70 some passages in the Quran about Musa alayhi salam, you know that? It's a very often repeated discussion. So what's the how are surahs placed in the Quran? That's the thing I wanted to, this is that fifth point. How are they placed? How are they situated in the Quran? Think of it like this. Every surah is a collection of very important lessons. Every surah is a collection of very important lessons. And they're all tied together. So a surah is like a thesis. Like a course you're taking, that's a surah. A lot of times when we study the Quran, we study an ayah from over here, and we study another ayah that's related to that ayah over there, and then we study a story that's related to these two ayat from over there. In other words, we have a very disjointed study of the Quran. When we study a surah, we normally don't stick to the surah as a whole, as a unit. You do that with every other book, by the way. When you study a chapter, you finish the chapter. If something comes up in that chapter, you don't open up another book and say, let me go read up on that first. You just finish that chapter. But normally, for people who aren't dedicated students of the Quran, they don't take a wholesome approach to studying a surah like that. But a surah really is a unified whole. It has a purpose. It has a singular purpose. It may have a lot of lessons, but they all go together towards one larger concept. Now, have you ever heard the concept of supporting evidence? Supporting evidence? The stories in the Quran are not being told for the purpose of telling the story. They're being told to support the lesson of that surah. The surah has a lesson, and the part of the story, only that part of the story will be mentioned that helps you understand the lesson at hand. No other part of that story will be mentioned. So the Quran is not concerned with dates and names of places in detail, names of figures. Even Yusuf alayhi salam, the most elaborate story in the Quran are the names of the brothers mentioned. Is the name of the minister mentioned? Is the name of Yusuf alayhi salam's mother mentioned? Is the name of the minister's wife mentioned? Man, there's only two names. What two names? Yusuf and Yaqub. Because even though the story is critical, those details are not the purpose. The purpose is something larger. So anything that doesn't go towards the larger purpose is compromised. The Bible doesn't do this. Or the version of the Bible that is in our possession at this point, or that we have access to at this point, you'll find names, dates, figures, the son of this, who's the son of this, who's the son of this, who lived here, and then they moved over there, and then they lived over there, and all these details. All these details. Quran doesn't concern itself with that. Why? Because it's not the point. And I'll just give you one additional example, and I'm done, inshallah, of this concept. And by the way, this is even true of Surah Yusuf, which you would think the point of the surah is the story, but even then the point isn't the story. Even in Surah Yusuf, the point is the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. Did you know that? The entire surah is actually a discussion about the life of the Prophet. There are amazing amounts of parallels between the Prophet's life and Surah Yusuf. It's the year of grief when the surah is revealed, and the surah is about the grief of Yusuf alayhi salam and the grief of his father. It's a time Yusuf alayhi salam's brothers persecuted him. The Prophet's brothers, the Quraysh, persecuted him. Yusuf alayhi salam was put in a dark place. Rasulullah alayhi salam is put in a cave. He exiled. Yusuf alayhi salam eventually comes back and establishes the legacy of his father, Yaqub. Rasulullah alayhi salam eventually comes back and establishes the legacy of his father, Ibrahim alayhi salam. Yusuf alayhi salam comes back at his brothers and says, no harm will come on you today. La tathriba alaykum al-yawm. Rasulullah says, by the way, I'll do what Yusuf did. La tathriba alaykum al-yawm. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Amazing parallels between both of those sides. And what's, Shaykh Yasser mentioned one thing about the beginning and ending of the surahs. You remember Ulul Albab? And at the end also, Ibrah. Another thing, Allah says in the beginning of the surah, He says, Inna anzalnahu Qur'anan Arabiyyan la'allakum ta'qilun, so that you can understand. We reveal an Arabic Qur'an so that, what can you do? You can understand. End of the surah, don't you understand? Afala ta'qilun? Amazing. It's like the whole thing comes together. Whole thing comes together. Can I give you one more example? One quick, it came in my head, might as well. Okay? Surah Al-Baqarah, the longest surah in the Quran. In Surah Al-Baqarah, so many subjects have come up. In the middle of towards the end of the surah, of the many stories of Bani Israel, Allah mentions license plate number, no, okay, 10 minutes, okay. Alright. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions the story of Talut and Jalut. Talut and Jalut. You guys know the story? What's the biblical name of that story? Anybody know? David and Goliath. The biblical version is called David and Goliath. And if you don't know the story, the summary version of it is Dawood alayhi salam, a young man, really a boy, ends up killing Goliath, Jalut, who is a military commander who people are terrified of. Really, like they're known as armies of giants. They're very, very big people. And they're fully covered in armor except their eye shows. Right? That's how covered, and that's a horrifying appearance of an army that's coming your way, and yet he is defeated by a slingshot of Dawood alayhi salam. Okay? Now this occurs, this surah, Surah Al-Baqarah has many things, and this story occurs towards the end of the surah, and right before it, Allah is preparing the Muslims for the battle that is coming, the battle of Badr. Right before it. Allah Azza wa Jal talks about fighting in the path of Allah that is approaching. And be ready for it. And immediately switches over to Bani Israel and the story of Talut and Jalut. And in that story, one of the many lessons in that story, كَم مِّن فِئَةٍ قَلِيلَةٍ غَلَبَتْ فِئَةً كَثِيرَةً بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. How many times has a large group been overtaken, and how many times has a small group dominated a large group by Allah's permission? Is that about to happen in Badr? SubhanAllah. Allah is giving us like pre-game pep talk. You know, before you get into the battle, there's this, you know, in the locker room basically. You're being fired up. We're not the first ones to go. This has been done before. We're part of a legacy. Let me tell you about a Badr that happened a long time ago. And this is how it turned out, and this is what you have to do to make it work this time. SubhanAllah. We're being prepared. It's not just a story. To the Sahaba, it's not a story. They're not reading the history of Bani Israel. They're reading preparation for what they're about to do. That's what they're reading. أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. Pour patience onto us. Make our feet firm and aid us against the disbelieving nation. These are words of the followers, the believers, the followers of Talut alayhi salam. And now they will become the words of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu ajma'in. Firm our feet. Make us patient. Aid us against the disbelieving nation. SubhanAllah. It's not just a story. It's not just placed there for any, trivial reason. It's situated for a very specific purpose. Very, very specific purpose. And so, even though I apologize that I completely compromised the subject of leadership, which I had some things to share with you about, but nonetheless, I thought since we have good momentum going with the stories, might as well share some things. Jazakumullahu khairan for listening attentively. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.